Hi, everyone. So thank you so much for attending our webinar today. My name is Imogen Weatherhead, and I'm the CEO and founder of Qudini. And we've got some really exciting insights showing how consumers want to engage with banks during and beyond the pandemic. So who are we? Quickly first, we are Qudini. We help leading global banks and enterprise brands to increase their profitability and brand relevance through our retail choreography solutions for appointment scheduling, managing walk-ins coming into a branch, into a virtual queue or a virtual wait line, and communicating with them about their turn, event booking, so enabling customers to book onto online events, and also task management, helping banks to better communicate with their branches from a head office level and across the branch. So we surveyed 2,000 US consumers in June this year, and our key things that we wanted to understand were, has the pandemic changed the way that people want to engage with banks? As the threat of COVID-19 declines, which of these habits are going to be here to stay? Are consumers still concerned about visiting banks, and how can we make them less concerned? Is the demand for appointments within banks growing, and what types of appointments do customers want to be able to schedule? How will this look after the pandemic? What is the business case for a retail bank in using appointment scheduling? And also, how do customers want their experience to be managed within a branch? So we were doing surveys throughout 2020, and some of the key things that we found pertaining to retail banking behaviors was that 87% of customers said, 87% of Americans said that they would normally visit a bank branch outside of COVID-19, but at the height of the pandemic, 52% of people were avoiding them and 39% of people were reducing their visits. Only 8% of people were visiting them as normal. So customers were 3 times more likely to avoid a bank branch than a grocery store, and 2 times more likely to avoid a bank branch than a pharmacy. So even though banks were categorized as essential and able to stay out, consumers did not see them as essential as other types of stores. If we look at this by age demographic, we found that there's definitely younger age groups are slightly less likely to visit bank branches than their older demographics. Maybe that's because their banking needs are less complex, or maybe it's because they can do more online. They don't feel a need to visit branches. And then during the pandemic, it was the younger generations were also the ones who were much more likely to avoid branches. Again, potentially maybe they switched to more online needs, but our surveys found that across industries, these younger generations were at the time more concerned about COVID-19 than the older demographics. Outside of COVID-19, we found that men and women were equally likely to visit branches, but during the pandemic, women were slightly more likely, 20% more likely to avoid going to a bank branch. And by household income, we found that higher household income groups were more likely to visit bank branches outside of the pandemic. And in the height of pandemic, all household income groups were equally likely to avoid bank branches, although slightly less so amongst the higher income groups. And then again, we surveyed customers in 2020 to understand were they still avoiding bank branches. And we found, so this was September 2020, we found that still 48 or almost half of customers were still avoiding bank branches. And 9% were, only 9% were kind of visiting them more than before. So then in June 21 this year, we wanted to understand how customers were now starting to feel about kind of going out, particularly as the vaccine was rolling out and people were getting hopefully a bit more confident, although COVID cases were still rising. And obviously we found that people can still get COVID despite having had the vaccine. So we found that consumers are still concerned about visiting stores and bank branches. Half of customers said that they expect to be concerned for up to 12 months. 27% expect for under 6 months, and 21% between 7 and 11 months here. So that's overall kind of half of customers. Then you've got a third of customers who expect to be concerned for between 1 and 5 years. So 21% for up to 2 years, and 8% for up to 5 years. And then you've got your 10% here who expect to be concerned about visiting stores and bank branches forever. So not sure if that's just general a concern, or if that is a pandemic driven concern. They don't think it's going to go away. We also asked customers where they wanted to see different retailers, banks and industries use vaccine passports to monitor which customers have had the vaccine before they allow them into their space. And we found that, unsurprisingly, airlines and transport companies were the most in demand for using vaccine passports. Only 32% of people said they didn't want any businesses to use vaccine passports. Restaurants were second in demand, but you've got banks at 20%. So still 1 in 5 customers are so concerned that they want banks to even monitor vaccine passports in their branches. And interestingly, we found that younger generations were 13% more likely to want banks to use vaccine passports. We also wanted to understand if customers were concerned about waiting in line. So how they felt about whether it was kind of waiting up in a line or just waiting in a branch, maybe on a sofa, but having the concept of having to wait. And we found that because of the pandemic and the fact that COVID makes you want to not be near anyone, 42% of customers said that they are more likely to be concerned about queuing within stores and banks during the pandemic. But even after the pandemic, 36% of consumers still expect to be concerned about waiting in line or waiting in a bank branch or a store compared to before the pandemic. And interestingly, we found that it was the younger generations who were more likely to be concerned by waiting in line during the pandemic, but also more likely to be concerned, much more likely to be concerned after the pandemic than baby boomers as well. But still, consumers expect to be more concerned by waiting in line after the pandemic compared to how they felt before the pandemic. We also wanted to understand what the cost was for brands in customers waiting in line. So we found that 85% of consumers said that they have avoided entering a store or a bank branch or walked out of a store or bank branch without buying anything because they've had to wait in line for service. So 14% said so often, 33%, a third said sometimes, and 35% said rarely. So there's still occasions, even with those rarely, where they are walking out. We found that higher household income groups were much more likely to walk out of bank branches because of a wait line, and also so were younger generations. We then wanted to understand that, so this is obviously kind of a big revenue hit for retailers and banks that have queues in their business. We wanted to understand, is that also a long-term impact as well? So we asked people how much they agreed with the statement. A long waiting experience makes me less likely to return to a retailer. And 63% of consumers agreed with the statement. So 30%, a third, agreed strongly, and 33%, another third, agreed somewhat. We found that higher household income groups were much more likely to agree. So 50% of the highest household income groups strongly agreed with the statement. And we found that all generations were equally likely to agree with the statement. So these insights show that wait lines are costing banks and retailers not just immediate significant revenues, but also long-term loyalty, potential advocacy from their customers. We then wanted to understand, like, is this exacerbated by the pandemic? And we found that half, or 53% of customers, said that during the pandemic, they were even more likely to avoid entering a store or walk out of a branch because of waits for service. And again, higher household income groups were 1.7 times more likely to be deterred by waits during the pandemic. So not only was waiting a big problem before the pandemic, it's hugely exacerbated by the pandemic. And the fact that customers are still concerned about visiting bank branches, and some even 20% even want banks to manage vaccine passports, shows that queues and wait times are still costing banks. We wanted to understand how long people felt was a long wait before they would walk out. And we found that 17% would only tolerate a wait of up to 3 minutes. 22%, so 1 in 5, would tolerate up to 7 minutes. Another 20%, so 1 in 5, would tolerate up to 10. But you've basically got 48, or half of your customers here, will only tolerate a wait of up to 10 minutes. And in banking, where the transactions tend to be a lot longer, and often unless you're heavily resourcing your branch, it's very hard to manage all of those customers, then you will be losing customers. So some of the ways that we're seeing banks manage this, which I'll share later, can really help with that. We also wanted to understand what concerned people about visiting stores and bank branches, because these are some of the ways that banks can start to improve their experience. So one of the big ones was other people not wearing masks was a concern amongst 56, so over half of people. So keeping mask policies in place can still help to make people feel safe. Touching products and surfaces that others have touched was a concern for 45%. So making sure hand sanitizers are really visible and easy, and ensuring good cleaning policies, still really important. Waiting in line inside or outside of stores or bank branches was a concern amongst 24%, or a quarter of people. So making sure that you manage customers' experiences and reduce any waiting friction points. So what can we learn from these insights? So to summarize, customers are still concerned about visiting bank branches, with 50% going so far as to even think that vaccine passports should be useful. So this really indicates that banks need to find ways to make customers feel more comfortable if they want them to visit their bank branches. Younger generations are most likely to avoid branches before and during the pandemic. And so banks increasingly need to find new ways to engage with them. Queuing is more of a concern, waiting in line is more of a concern, and will continue to be a concern after the pandemic. So banks need to find ways to reduce waiting friction points in the branches for the long term. And any investments made in any of these areas will have a long-term impact, because they'll appeal greater to the younger generations who want to be managed in more digital ways, and also because customers expect to be concerned for some time. So how are we seeing banks responding? So we're working with a number of banks on appointment scheduling, so enabling customers to pre-book times to visit branch or to receive service in branch, or to pre-book times to connect with a video banker from the comfort of their own home over phone or even video. You've also got banks that are using our Host app to manage a digital waitlist of the walk-ins that are coming into branch for service here and now. This means that they can provide them with an accurate wait time estimate. And if there's a wait, they can add their number in, and the customer will get a text message when it's their turn to be served. They can also watch their place in the queue while they're waiting. So virtual queuing. We've also got more and more retailers and banks doing event booking, so enabling customers to go online and see what events they might be having, whether that's in branch or virtual events. So one of our clients, when the pandemic first hit, they took all of their events online and started hosting even more events that were focused workshops on helping customers to use their online banking and mobile banking platform for those that weren't able to visit branch. And then also task management, so helping banks to, across all of these solutions, not just manage their customers, but to manage their teams. So helping them to add tasks at head office level that the banks can see, and also across the store. So these could be tasks such as merchandising, like marketing displays, but also really importantly, compliance and regulation tasks as well. So we then wanted to understand how customers feel about scheduling appointments within banks. So appointment scheduling has been a huge growth area of 2020 and 2021. We're seeing a number of journalists cover this concept of the rise of the appointment economy. And if you look interestingly at Google Trends data, so if you type in Google Trends, if you haven't used this before, you can basically search any term and see worldwide or in a specific country and over different timeframes what customers are searching for. So we search bank appointment, and you can see here there's an incredibly clear trend in growth in appointments within banking in general, but particularly driven by the pandemic. So this drop will have been when the pandemic first hit, and then you've seen that the growth trajectory has massively accelerated since things started to open up again, with occasional drops as kind of COVID cases rise, etc. But overall, a significant growth. We also did the same for virtual appointments. So we couldn't find virtual appointments for banking, but just generally across industries. You can see an incredible growth that's been driven in in virtual appointments by the pandemic. So it was already like maybe slightly starting to happen, but now it's gone boom and it's happened massively. And that's something that we're only seeing continue to grow. So in light of this, we wanted to ask consumers how they felt about scheduling appointments in banks and what types of appointments they wanted to be able to schedule. And we found that 81% of consumers wanted to be able to schedule appointments, at least one kind of appointment within a bank. So that's 81% here. So that's massive. And then you've got 45% of those, so almost half, want to be able to schedule appointments for in-branch services. You've got 30%, so almost a third, wanting to be able to schedule appointments for video banking and phone banking. And then you've got 21% even wanting to schedule appointments to visit branches. And we've got more insights on all of this by generation, age, etc. So when we compare this interest in banks to other retail industries that we were researching at the time, we found that banks were fourth top in terms of interest in being able to schedule appointments. So any banks that aren't enabling customers to schedule appointments are lagging behind, because this is something that customers massively want to be able to do, and that there are banks increasingly doing this. We then wanted to break that down in terms of in-store service. So again, banks were fourth in terms of interest in customers being able to book service appointments within a branch/store. And then appointment, so for virtual appointments, banks were actually the third highest of interest for customers wanting to be able to schedule virtual video banking appointments. If you look at this by age generation, it further shows that this trend is growing. So Millennial and Gen Z demand for appointment scheduling is the strongest. So here you go. In general, 85% of Millennial and Gen Z customers want to be able to schedule at least one type of appointment. For in-branch services, actually slightly more for baby boomers, but for video banking, they are 1.5 times more likely to want to schedule a video banking appointment than a baby boomer. And even for appointments just to visit branches, they're twice as likely as baby boomers. So this shows that there's massive potential to better engage with these younger age groups by offering appointments and kind of essentially giving more convenience and more control to the customer by giving them appointments, especially virtual appointments that they can take online from the comfort of their own homes. If we look at this by age generation, kind of broken down further, you can see there's a direct correlation between younger age groups and increased interest in scheduling virtual services, so very direct. And then again, for in-branch services, actually the inverse correlation is true, potentially because these older generations are more likely to visit branch. Maybe these younger generations are more likely to visit branches as their banking needs become more complex. But you can see that they're definitely interested in engaging virtually with banks. So we also looked at it by job seniority, and we found that more senior professionals were more interested in scheduling appointments. So 91% of C-level executives wanted to be able to schedule at least one kind of appointment with a bank, and 88% of senior management, 86% of business owners, and that slowly declined slightly for some of these other lower level seniorities. So this further strengthens the business case, is that you'll be attracting some of the really high value customers, particularly those who are very time poor. But in general, even 79% of people wanting to schedule appointments is massive across, particularly when you compare it to some of the other industries we studied. The business case for offering appointment scheduling is incredibly strong. So we asked customers that if they'd had an appointment in the last 12 months, and how did that appointment impact their interaction with the brand moving forward. So 93% of customers said that the ability to book an appointment had at least one positive impact on them. 33%, so a third, said it made them more likely to visit the bank in the first place. 24% said it drove them to buy something. So that's a quarter of people that can schedule an appointment are more likely to actually close a sale with the bank. 21% said it drove them to tell their friends. So you've got 1 in 5 advocating the bank more because of scheduling an appointment. 25%, a quarter, said it made them more likely to choose the brand over the competitor. So it's a definite way that banks can stand out if they get on this trend sooner. And 29% said it's made them more likely to return to the brand. So that's a third of people who are more likely to become loyal to a business because they've had the opportunity to schedule an appointment. So if you look at this in financial terms, if you've got say 100 people scheduling an appointment a month, which isn't a lot by our standards. And if you think, okay, 24% of those are more likely to buy something, what's your average spend per customer? And what does that mean for your business? There will be a very, very strong business case there. Most of our clients make back the cost of using our software within the first month, the first day or first appointment even. So why do customers want to schedule appointments? So first of all, the top interesting factor was the ability to reduce the risk of contracting COVID-19. So 32% said that it reduced the risk. So it shows that appointment scheduling is definitely a way to build customer confidence and allay their concerns about catching COVID in store. But followed closely was some of the just experience benefits. So it's efficient and it helps people to save time. It makes them feel valued as a customer, essentially. It allows them to plan their day better. And also importantly, it allows them to prepare for what they want to discuss. And that has a massive conversion benefit for a bank, which we found with many of our clients. Customers are turning up knowing what they want to discuss, and they're therefore more likely to convert. So this is some quick insights from our case study with NatWest, who use Qudini for video banking appointments. So customers can schedule an appointment online, and this enables them to connect with a video banker by Zoom, and when it's their turn. Before that, customers had to call the bank or a branch to book an appointment. So we found that by implementing our software, they doubled the appointment traffic compared to the previous process. They also reduced their no-shows by 70% now that customers were receiving automatic reminders and they could easily cancel or reschedule their appointment. They saw increased staff efficiency because customers, so now that customers can manage their own appointments, staff can easily manage the appointments, and also customers can cancel if they're not going to be able to make it, so no time is wasted. A big one also is that new customers are acquired. So a lot of the customers that book appointments are totally new to the bank. And we find this in general across all different industries, that around 60% of customers have not engaged with this bank before, of the ones that book an appointment. So appointment scheduling is a massive customer acquisition tool. Increased sales. So also because the services are more accessible, they're attracting more customers, but also those customers are turning up more prepared for what they want to discuss. They're more likely to convert, and there's a massive kind of sales benefit as well. So we've got a case study video on this, which you're free to go and watch online. If you need to find it, get in touch with me. It's also on our slide deck, which we'll put up online after this session. So we then wanted to ask customers, how is this trend going to continue after the pandemic as the vaccine rolls out? And we found that during the pandemic, 46% of people said they were more likely to want to schedule appointments than before the pandemic. We then said, in terms of after the pandemic, are you more likely to want to schedule an appointment than before the pandemic? And 43% still said yes. So that's not a big difference. And it really shows that the pandemic has been a catalyst for a trend that was already happening. And our final insights on appointment scheduling show that it's really not difficult to embed appointment scheduling within your brand. We asked customers how they most wanted to schedule appointments, and the top ones were by the company's website and by calling the store or the branch. So all you really need to do is equip your stores with the ability to take appointments and enable a link online, create a dedicated landing page so that if customers are searching on Google, book an appointment in X bank, that will come up and they can then easily schedule the appointment. All of these other methods can be layered on later in order to further drive traffic. So through your company's app, through the call center, we have a call center interface, and also by scanning a QR code from an advert. So Millennial and Gen Z customers are 7 times more likely to want to schedule an appointment by scanning a QR code. But what this means is if you're using this in your print and outdoor ads, you can turn those ads into direct traffic to your branches, which is incredible. Branches or virtual video banking services. Finally, we also just wanted to understand how customers wanted to be managed when they're in branch, what's going to allay their concerns about visiting branches if they happen to have to walk in as opposed to schedule an appointment. So we asked people, if a branch had a host with a tablet that greeted you, added you to kind of a wait list and gave you estimates about your wait time and told you when it was going to be your turn, would you want this? And 35 said yes. And 36% also said that they would want to be able to receive update. They would want this system plus the ability to receive updates by phone about when their turn arose. This actually saw a trend. So older age generations were more likely to want the bank to have a host with a tablet managing their experience, likely because they're more likely to want to walk into branch as opposed to schedule an appointment or even visit a branch at all. And if we look at the benefits of virtual queuing, so people definitely found that a host with a tablet or a virtual queuing system would allay their COVID concerns and help to reduce their risk of catching COVID-19. But on an experience kind of long-term perspective, they felt that the process was beneficial because it was informative and it kept them updated. It enabled them to be productive. It felt fair, and they didn't have to worry that they would be pushed in front of, which is always something like that makes people very emotional and anxious. And we remember emotions more than anything. So if you can turn waiting into a good experience, a positive experience that gives good emotions, you can build much stronger relationships with customers. Again, the business case is really strong. So we asked people, if a bank used this, how would this make you feel, and how would it kind of impact your future interactions? So 47% said that if they had a host with a tablet, they'd be more likely to visit the brand. 46% said they would be more likely to buy something in the branch. 46% also said they'd be more likely to buy services online. 51% said they would be more likely to return to the store or the branch again. 48% said they would be more likely to tell their friends, and 48% said they'd be more likely to choose the brand over their competitors. So that's pretty much half of every customer across all of these factors: loyalty, increased sales, increased NPS, and advocacy by using a host with a tablet. And we've actually got a case study that attests directly to these results. So NatWest, we're using Qudini as our waitlist app alongside our appointment scheduling platform to greet customers that are coming into branch if they're walking in, provide them with a wait time estimate, add them to a digital queue, and if the wait is long enough, they'll be able to get a text message when it's their turn. By using the system, they managed to reduce their walkouts by 60% because customers are communicated professionally and managed very well. They also increase sales because more customers are retained, firstly, but also our system has a really great interface that helps them to see who's waiting and which of their advisors are available or about to become available, so they can match the customers to the best team member for their needs, and that increases the chances of making a sale. Reduced operational costs. So now that data provides insights on customer demand to inform resource planning. So they get more and more data on who's coming in for what different services and when. They can use this to better plan resources to the right times and places. And ultimately, all of this increases staff efficiency because they're better resourcing to the right times and places, but also they're matching customers to the right colleagues to maximize the chances of making a sale, as well as the fact that they just generally got more customers because fewer are walking out, and they're able to spread the peak flow over a longer period. So yeah, a lot of benefits. So just to conclude on our entire report that we've just presented. So the first point was that consumers are still concerned about visiting branches, and they expect to be concerned for some time. So banks do need to find new ways to increase customer confidence to get them to visit their branches. The report and the Google Trends insight show that the demand for appointment scheduling within banks is definitely growing. 8 in 10 customers want to be able to schedule an appointment with a bank. So every single bank should be looking to offer appointments as a really powerful acquisition tool and retention tool. Younger Gen Z and millennial generations are generally less engaged with bank branches, but they're heavily engaged with the idea of being able to schedule virtual or video banking appointments. So to continue acquiring and retaining these customers, every bank needs to embed video banking appointments as part of their service offering, and that will become the future. So it's definitely time to get ahead because, as our insights earlier show, it will help you stand out against competitors. The business case for offering appointments is incredibly strong in terms of sales, loyalty, advocacy amongst a quarter of our customers, while helping a bank brand to stand out against competitors. So this suggests that the banks that offer these services now really will better stand out against their competitors, and they'll be better future-proofing their business, and suggests that those that don't will fall behind. And we also found that within branches, customers want their experience to be managed in more digital ways, and half, or 47% of them, are even prepared to pay more and to be more loyal for the privilege. So busy bank branches should be looking to equip their hosts with a professional tablet, get rid of any clipboards that you might be using to manage customers, and just have a really simple tablet that enables the customer to understand where they are in the queue, what their wait time is, and even to get text messages about their turn. So thank you so much for watching, everybody. Just to remind on who we are, so we're Qudini. We power leading global banks and retailers, helping them to increase their profitability and brand relevance with our software for appointment scheduling, host app, and kind of virtual wait line, virtual queuing software, event booking, and also task management. Feel free to get in touch. I'm also going to open the floor to a couple of questions. I think we've got time for one or two. But if you want to get in touch, it's info@Qudini, and me or one of my colleagues will be able to pick it up straight away. So we've got our first question coming now. Do you see banks take more interest in using appointment scheduling or walk-in management with the host app? How many banks that you work with will deploy both solutions? So great question. We actually find that within banking, often the walk-in management is of first interest, because I think it's an area where there's a lot of like if there's a problem with it, then it's a very stark problem because customers are complaining. They often tweet about having to wait in line, etc. So we'll often find that the deals, like the kind of project, will start with queuing, but will quickly move to appointments as well, because banks will realize the benefit of enabling customers to pre-plan their visit, and also kind of maybe they've already had some kind of slightly more rudimentary appointment system before, but they'll see the benefits of having that fully integrated with the walk-in management system, and the fact that we're kind of all of our appointment feature set is very focused on retailers and banks at enterprise level, so they're keen to then switch over to ours. Based on the report, how do you see the role of the branch moving forward? Very good question. So obviously you can see in the insights that the younger customers, actually they want service much more online by their interest in virtual appointments. Although actually, if you look at the level, it was 37% of Gen Zs want virtual appointments, but 37% still want appointments within branch as well. So the interest actually is in parity. But one thing we did see that was very interesting was also that Millennial and Gen Z customers were more likely to want to schedule times just to visit branch, so not for service specifically. So this suggests that they would just want to use branches as kind of dwell spaces for working, cafes, kind of catching up, or just kind of using the space. So I think the concept of a branch becoming a bit of a hub for a banking community is one of the things that we will see in the future. Great. I think that is all of our questions that we've got time for now. So thank you everybody so much for attending. I hope that you had some really useful insights today. You can get in touch with us anytime if you want more questions, or if you want to receive the links. We'll put these up online, but feel free to get in touch and we can send them to you directly. That is no problem. Have a great day.